Welcome back to Control the Freak. Today we're going to go through the murder and the aftermath of Charlie Kirk and have a look at where control comes into play. I think I've given it a week or so now, so maybe it's about time we started to take a little look at what's been going on where control's concerned with Charlie Kirk. Been thinking a lot about what's happening online in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death. Everywhere you look, there's tears, there's anger, and in the worst cases, celebrating. And it's those cases that, unsurprisingly, have caught my attention the most. There's people out there actually celebrating the shooting of a young dad because he said some words they didn't like. I don't know too much about Charlie Kirk. I wasn't what you'd call a fan. I didn't follow him. I clicked on the odd video, so I've got a fair idea of what he was about, but it's like my son said to me, I probably disagreed with him as much or less than I agreed. What I did like was the fact that he was talking to people and giving them a chance to respond. In fact, he always invited those he disagreed with to speak with him first before the people who agreed with him. They got the first go. You could argue that he was never there to give way. His public debate appearances were always held under the banner, "Prove me wrong." And I got the impression that he didn't think anyone could do. He was too invested in his beliefs for that, I think. But that's okay. He was only there to talk after all, and it's not as if he forced anyone to step up to the mic and debate him. They had a choice. He'd turn up to places where big groups of really angry people didn't want him to go, and he would at least try and have dialogue. He'd argue what he thought was right, and he'd invite them to do the same. Some people hated him for doing this because they didn't want to hear what he had to say, and more importantly, they didn't want anyone else to hear what he had to say. It was dangerous, they said, and his words were violent. I heard one of these people celebrating his death compare the words that he used to being punched in the face and argued, how else do you respond to being punched in the face other than to punch back? They were comparing actual violence, in this case the murder of a young dad, to some words they didn't like and concluding that it was a fair outcome. I know this logic. It's a control tool. Change and predetermine what words really mean, even better than the person who says those words conveniently, so that you can react according to your own predetermined conclusion, because that suits you. I've spoken a lot of times in these videos about the control equation, demand, disproportionate benefit, and escalation. I developed this equation over years of analysing not only other people's controlling patterns, but my own. I spent a long time going over past behaviour examples again and again, trying to understand whether there was a pattern that I could identify that would first help me to stop doing what I was doing, would eventually help others either change if they were like me, or to help people identify when someone was beginning a pattern of control that was going to get worse so that they could avoid it, or at least know when to get out of the relationship. I was hardly ever violent. It happened, but it was rare. What I did every day, though, was follow that control equation. In arguments, I'd start with the demand that you agreed with me or else feared consequences. It was always disproportionately beneficial to me that you agreed with me and gave way to my demand. And if you didn't agree, I would escalate. This exact equation, particularly escalation, that was taken tragically to its worst possible outcome in the case of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, we're still waiting on some facts, but it's not hard to see how this equation works in this case. There was a demand that Charlie stop saying what he was saying. This only benefited the shooter. Charlie Kirk wouldn't benefit from that at all. When Charlie Kirk refused to stop speaking, it escalated to his murder. When it comes to the people celebrating his murder, you can see how they're following the same control equation. They might not have pulled the trigger, but you can see that they agree with that escalation. And that's because they've mentally followed it. Stop saying what I don't like. This only benefits them. And if you don't, you deserve to die. Like I said, I know this mentality well. It's the same equation I followed for a big portion of my life, and I understand how hard it is to break free of it. The fact is, when you pull it off, it brings you a lot of power and control because most people don't want conflict. And so a big portion of the time, it's successful, which only reinforces the idea that it's the right way to behave. I can imagine what it must be like to live with these people. It must be like living with me years ago. If you question them or disagree with them, there's hell to pay. Whether that's ignoring you, long periods of silence, cancelling friendships altogether, aggression or violence. I'm not pointing the finger so much as highlighting the pattern that I know well and explaining how it works and why it's so appealing. When it comes to political anger and violence in particular, though, I really don't get it. Not anymore, at least. There's plenty of politicians I don't like, and in my worst moments, I wish they'd just go away. But I wouldn't celebrate their murder, though I do acknowledge that there might have been a point where I would have done. That's why I can say I know what logic patterns they're following. Nowadays, though, as well as changing my point of view generally, I've really changed my mind when it comes to politicians and people in the public eye. I see it like this, and I really hope this brings some perspective. In so many ways, we're in a coercive relationship with our so-called leaders. Politicians, in particular, benefit from people being at each other's throats in a couple of ways. If we grow really passionate about our side, we're a predictable voting base that they don't have to work hard to win over. And if we're distracted fighting each other, we aren't watching what they're doing. Who knows what's happening while we're looking the other way? Whatever side you're on, your focus and anger is wasted on people who vote a different way or use language the other side endorses. It should be on making those politicians do everything they can to provide the best for everyone, not just one side, and to stick to their promises and to earn the right to gain or keep your vote. And if they don't, they should be voted out, and quickly. Don't hate them, don't invest in them emotionally whatsoever. It's my suspicion that behind closed doors, their only interest is keeping the machine going, to be honest. And even the nice ones can't possibly care as much about you as you do about them or their policies. You're a stranger to them, which makes me question even more why you'd celebrate their death. On the right, there's some righteous anger, and I get it. This doesn't feel fair, and to many, it's too close to home and a viable threat. Over the last 10 years or so, the pressure to watch what you say by people who demand you manage their emotions for them has seen people lose jobs, families, friends, and for them, this is a frightening, real, and angering escalation. Now they want retribution. For those close to Charlie Kirk, I feel their pain, and I can completely understand. I don't understand how those celebrating can laugh in their faces. It's inhuman. For others on their side, they want the other side to see what it feels like to have the tools of control that they said for so long were fair used against them for once. For so long, some people on the left said controlling people's speech and punishing them for saying things they didn't like was simply fair consequences. And now some on the right want to hold the mirror up to that theory and see how they like it. I really hope it's so that they can see how corrosive that mentality is and we all learn from it. But even there, I fear there's some people who just want others to pay for how they feel. Again, I get it to some degree. I know that urge only too well. I do struggle on some level to condone using the same tactics that many of us have always said were just toxic, controlling tactics in the first place. But then I've never had it happen to me, I suppose. I just struggle because I know where it leads. Maybe there is an argument for a little pushback. My advice is always to push back against people legitimately trying to take control of you. After all, we just need to be careful about our motivations. It all comes down to personal responsibility. I've said that many times, that there's no such thing as a universal reaction. There is the object of the words people say, and there's your subjective reaction to them. These feelings and emotions don't exist in the air around us, and if they did, everyone would react the same. Your subjective reaction happens in your own head. You can hate Charlie Kirk, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Keir Starmer, Putin or Zelensky. You might feel completely justified in doing that. There's politicians I dislike. I think I'm correct in doing so for my own unique reasons, but I know that they're my reasons, conjured up in my own brain. If politicians or famous people's behaviour was 100% objectively bad, there wouldn't be 2 points of view, left and right. And the fact there is should tell you there's at least one other choice you can make. Within that choice, a myriad different choices about how you react. I might have heard or read something about one of these people that persuaded me, and I might be right to be persuaded according to my own moral compass. But that moral compass and how I manifest that persuasion belongs to me. I can't blame or credit anyone else for it, no matter what they've done. The fact is, these people are strangers to me, and I to them. In summary, my advice for what it's worth, and the only way I can see a way out, is that we all recognise our own responsibility for our own feelings and reactions. Don't point the finger at other people. Manage your own behaviour. You can't change some people. It's not your job to. And anyone who thinks that someone who's never put a hand on anyone, dying for some words that they said just to make someone else feel better, says more about those people than it ever could about Charlie Kirk. Just try and be better than that. Now, I know some of the words I've said there is bound to upset some people. You can't please everybody, as I've just said. But I said those words from a good place with a good heart. And if you want to take offence at them, it's none of my business. I didn't start out trying to upset anyone, but even if I did, it's not my responsibility to manage your reactions to it. The only way out of this is to manage your own personal responsibility, at least try and start from a good place. I don't know why you'd laugh in the face of a grieving wife, grieving mother, grieving children. I certainly don't know why you'd record videos and that and put it out there to show everybody how happy you are. Seems pretty narcissistic to me. But I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to give people a tool to maybe manage their own reactions a little bit better so that everybody can calm down. For what it's worth, I don't think Charlie Kirk was a bad guy. I think he had some ideas. And I think it was your choice whether or not you clicked on those videos or went to those rallies and listened to him. And wanting to stop him speaking because you didn't want other people to hear those ideas and have their own opinion seems to me a pretty controlling motivation. I hope that's some use to you. In the meantime, I'll leave you with the usual. Control the freak, not the people. I'll see you next time. Behave.